So my name is Lisa Waltzer. I graduated from the University of Buffalo in 2012 with my bachelor's degree in music performance. Right out of college, I started working at United Way of Greater Rochester, where I worked my way up over the course of 6 years from finance assistant to executive assistant to the president and CEO. A little over 5 years ago, I left United Way and moved to Paychex, where I'm currently a supervisor in our time and attendance product. I have a master's of public administration and nonprofit management from SUNY Brockport, and I spend a significant portion of my free time volunteering in leadership roles for nonprofits. When it comes to considering a career path besides college after high school, I would say it was pretty clear to me from as far back as I can remember that college was always the goal. It was basically drilled into us that you needed a college degree to be competitive in the workforce, but I was fortunate that my parents were supportive of me pursuing a degree that interested me. And most companies hiring at the time I was graduating didn't really care what your degree was in. They just wanted you to have one. So I chose to spend my time studying music, and I have zero regrets about that. I think the worst career advice that I was ever told was follow your passion, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. That's crap, right? I think the things that I'm passionate about most in my life are music and animals, and neither one makes for a lucrative career. My friends and I talk a lot about how work is a means to an end. It's a paycheck that allows us to do what we love in our free time. I also just think it's a bad idea to get yourself in a situation where you're dependent on doing something you love for money. In my experience, that's a great way to fall out of love with it real quick, and then you're left broke and burnt out. So I think follow your passion is great life advice, just not great career advice. And I think that's exactly the point. For people my age, we want there to be more to life than just our career. The most obvious difference between my generation and the baby boomers is the length of time that we stay with one employer. It seems like in the past there was a much stronger sense of loyalty for both the employer and the employee. These days, I think my generation and the generation after us feel, rightly or wrongly, that profit is king, that employers don't care about their employees, and that they would even go so far as to engage in exploitative behaviors, which in turn means that employees don't owe anything to their employer. There's this prevalent attitude that the employer-employee relationship these days is highly transactional. Millennials and Gen Zers in particular seem very big on defining what exactly is the scope of work that they're hired to do, and they don't want to do more than that without additional compensation. It's actually a similar trend to what we see in the nonprofit world when it comes to donations. People our age want to know what exactly their money is going towards, and they want every dollar accounted for. And it's the same at work. Like I said, it's very transactional. And I definitely think there's a general sense that those who are profiting from the system, employers, landlords, etc., they're the villains in the story. And the heroes are the people in their 20s and 30s who are genuinely struggling to make ends meet. But that being said, I went to work for Paychex specifically because I wanted somewhere I could build a career. And everyone I knew who worked there had done so for a significant period of time. So one thing that I think Paychex does right is there's so much variety in terms of opportunities for growth. And leaders are encouraged to talk about development with their employees in every single one-on-one meeting. The overall sentiment is that employees can learn to support any product they want, and cross-departmental movement is actually encouraged. So I've changed roles 4 times in the last 5 years, and I've worked in 2 completely different products. But most importantly, when I look ahead to my future at Paychex, I feel like my opportunities are unlimited. I know I won't ever get bored, and there's even a financial incentive to change roles as often as once a year. But even at Paychex, there's a nagging concern about this growing global partners team, which is code for India. So, there's always an awareness that any one of us could be disposable. I would say I trust that the older generation has my best interest at heart, but I don't trust them to make decisions on my behalf. And it's probably an unfair stereotype on my part, but I feel like boomers overall are completely out of touch with the reality facing my generation and the one behind us. So I don't feel that they have the same understanding of the world we live in. Um, yeah, I agree. I definitely feel like we've seen technology change at such a rapid pace. And I think that that rate of change exists in other areas of our world as well and aren't as easily visible as like the changes in technology. And so they're kind of miscounted or discounted along with the other changes. I can't remember a performance review at United Way. That's not to say it didn't happen, but it was not frequent by any means. Like maybe it was annually. At Paychecks, we do quarterly reviews, and then those lead up to an annual review as well. But we also have one-on-one meetings with our direct reports, either biweekly or monthly, depending on how things are going, just the nature of the business. So we have a standard set of questions that I, as a supervisor, have access to that there's 4 questions that we talk about every single meeting. It's how are you doing? What do you want to talk about? What specific successes or challenges are you facing? Then there's an opportunity for me to talk about how I think they're doing related to KPIs and our metrics. And then we talk about development. That 4th question is, what are you working towards? What can I help you with? Where do you want to go next? So those are the questions that I'm asking my people every time we get together. And then certainly if there's something that needs to be addressed sooner, it's very common for us to just talk to our people every day and go through all of that stuff as well. So I think that there's a couple of myths about our generation that are very frustrating. And first of all, I'll say that millennials like to be viewed as individuals. So I automatically don't really like talking about us as a group. But people say millennials don't like to talk on the phone. And to that, I would say we've been conditioned to feel like our worth is directly tied to having the right answer. And an unexpected phone call is a literal nightmare for somebody who has to look up the restaurant menu online ahead of time to determine what they're going to eat tomorrow for lunch. People say that millennials are lazy and don't have a strong work ethic. And to that, I would say work is devalued in the minds of the millennial and the Gen Zer. We just have different priorities than our parents did. And if you think your employees are lazy, maybe you just haven't found the right way to inspire them, or maybe you're not looking at what they have going on in their lives outside of work. So, for advice for how to work better with millennials and Gen Zers, understand that the rules of the game have changed. It's like we're all in one giant game of Monopoly, but the boomers bought up all of the properties before we even got a chance to roll the dice. And now renting a small apartment on Baltic Ave costs the same as landing on a Park Place Square with 3 hotels on it. Also, turns out that the money's fake. The get out of jail free cards can still only be cashed in by white men, no matter how much companies like to trot out their DEI initiatives. And you can forget about somebody handing you $200 just for pass and go. That's more like your gas bill just to get around the board. And beyond money woes, we don't have what I'll call the privilege of ignorance. We are constantly inundated with information about what's going on elsewhere in the world, and the barrage of suffering and injustice can be paralyzing and just downright depressing. You're telling me you want me to go sit at a desk and put numbers into a computer so that the rich people who own my company can get richer? And yet I have to worry about the very imminent threat that I may lose the legal right to make healthcare decisions about my own body and marry who I want to marry. And that's just what's happening in my own backyard. And oh, by the way, it's anyone's guess if we won't have jobs in 5 years because of a climate change related natural disaster or the simple fact that we've all been replaced by AI. So please understand the enormous amount of stress that each of these external factors can have on our day-to-day lives, and don't try to compare your experience to ours. Challenge your assumptions about what used to be considered affordable, and know that at heart, our morals are the same. All we want to do is to be able to pursue the things we love, support our families, and be contributing members of a society that benefits all of us, not just a few lucky people who got where they are by the sweat of others. Thank you. I think that the piece about the morals and what we want is really the crux of it, that like we're not so different, you and
Mhm,
I, right?
mhm,
Like, and
mhm,
the boomers are the ones who raised us, like, so they
mhm,
should think better of us, I think, have more respect for yourself and for the job you did raising this generation.